Okay, so just picture this for a second. You're sitting with someone who's at the very, very end of their life, and they lean in and they tell you a secret they've been holding on to for decades, a secret about what the world really was like when they were young. This isn't just some story, this is a piece of history that was almost completely wiped out. And that's where this all kicks off, not from some dusty old textbook, but from a last-minute deathbed confession. It's this promise of a history that wasn't just forgotten, but was, actively hidden. A truth that only came out at the very last second. Now, this is the really critical part. This entire incredible story comes from one single object, a little brown leather notebook. And get this, it was found completely by chance at an estate sale in Montreal back in 2019. It was just sitting in a box of old papers, waiting for almost 70 years for someone to find it. And when you look inside this notebook, you can actually see the story unfold. It starts out pretty normal, grocery lists, little notes about the weather. But then, all of a sudden, something changes. The handwriting gets tight, dense, almost frantic. It's like you're watching it turn from a diary into this desperate attempt to save a history before it's gone forever. This is the exact moment. The grandfather, a man named Mikhail Sokolov, is telling his grandson, Victor, we need to do this now. He knows he only has a few days left, and you get the sense that this memory is just too much to take with him. He doesn't just need someone to hear him, he needs someone to know the truth. So what was this huge secret? Well, the first bombshell Mikhail dropped was about who he was. He told his grandson, look, I'm not Russian, I'm not Soviet, I'm not even Tatar. He said he was something else, something he was convinced had been totally erased from the history books. For McCall, Tartarian wasn't just some weird name on an old map, a cartographer's mistake. No, he said it was a people, a whole civilization that saw the world in a completely different way. They looked at the beautiful old buildings we see today and didn't just see stone and metal, they knew what they were actually for.
I mean, you can just feel the weight of that, right? This man genuinely believed he was the last one, the final person alive who remembered this other world, this entire body of knowledge that was about to just, poof, vanish.
Okay, so what was this lost knowledge? Mikhail's story is all about his childhood city, Kazan, but the way he describes it, well, it's a version that doesn't exist in any official history. He remembered a city that, and I mean this literally, sang. This is such a wild concept. He said that the big, important buildings all had these special copper domes. He called them singing caps. And they were designed to vibrate with the wind, creating these complex harmonies that would just float through the streets. He swore it created an atmosphere that calmed people down and actually made them healthier. The whole city was a musical instrument. And this is where you really see how deep their understanding went. They had a whole vocabulary for ideas we don't even have words for. For them, Krasnost wasn't just the color red. It was the specific resonant frequency of red brick. Zvanost wasn't just a nice sound. It was a particular kind of resonance that could heal. Their language was literally built on physics and acoustics that we've just lost. So if a world like this really existed, where did it go? Well, according to this notebook, it didn't just fade away. It was taken apart, deliberately, a systematic erasure that started for Mikhail very close to home with his own father.
The notebook lays out this really chilling pattern, and it turns out a lot of this stuff can be verified. In one city after another, this same strange thing kept happening. Anyone who talked about what the old buildings were for, a teacher, a writer, an engineer, even Mikhail's father with his technical drawings, they were silenced. Or they just disappeared.
And the cover-up was so clever because it was hidden in boring, bureaucratic language. What the official records called deteriorated copper elements being removed for safety, the notebook called the singing caps being dismantled. What the authorities dismissed as mystical thinking, Mikhail called trying to save real knowledge. It's like you're reading two completely different histories of the exact same events. Now, I know what you're thinking. This all sounds impossible. A deathbed story, a lost civilization, a secret notebook. But believe it or not, the story doesn't end there. Because there is actual verifiable evidence that seems to back up Mikhail's incredible claims. So here's the million-dollar question, right? Can we actually prove any of this? After all these years, can we find any echoes of this lost world in the silence? Well, the answer, amazingly, seems to be yeah. The researcher who found the notebook decided to test one of Mikhail's most specific claims, that the main buildings in Kazan were laid out in a perfect mathematical grid. So he dug up some old survey maps from the 1890s before all the changes and plotted the locations. And what he found is just wow. The distances between these major buildings, they weren't random at all. They line up almost perfectly with fundamental mathematical constants, like the golden ratio and the silver ratio. That's not an accident. That implies a level of citywide precision planning that's just not in any of the official history books. And then there's the smoking gun, a lost scientific paper from 1896, written by a German engineer named Wilhelm Schaefer. He independently documented that the domes in Kazan were, in fact, advanced acoustic devices, Helmholtz resonators. He said they were tuned to specific frequencies and designed to affect the atmosphere. And then, right after publishing this one paper, Wilhelm Schaefer and all his work completely vanished from the record. But the story doesn't even stop there. Just 2 days after Mikhail died, some men showed up at his grandson's apartment. They said they were from the Ministry of Culture. They didn't take money or jewelry. They took books on architecture, metallurgy, and his grandfather's old tools. They knew exactly what they were looking for. And they left young Victor with this pretty chilling warning. The message was crystal clear. Don't talk about this, don't write about this, forget everything you heard. This wasn't just a lost history, it was a forbidden one. So when you piece it all together, what are you left with? The conclusion is kind of staggering. All the evidence seems to point to a civilization that had this incredibly advanced understanding of sound, of geometry, of how the built environment could affect people. And even more disturbing is the idea that this knowledge wasn't just lost, it was actively stamped out. And it all comes down to that one year, 1952, the year the last known person who remembered this world passed away. This isn't ancient history we're talking about. This was in our grandparents' lifetime. It so nearly slipped through our fingers for good. You know, maybe the most powerful line comes from the notebook itself. The machine is broken, but the blueprint persists in the foundations. The knowledge might be gone, the singing caps might be dismantled, but the physical evidence, the foundations of the buildings, the layout of the cities, those mathematical ratios, it's all still there, hiding in plain sight. The blueprint is waiting. The only question is, will we ever learn how to read it again?